We find the resources to get the right people.
Well, you
elected.
messed up La Mesa.
No, we got Laura Lothian elected in La Mesa. And of course, elections have consequences. But, there's so much more that we do. When we show up and do this level of activism, people want to know, like, what can I do to help? We give them ways to help. Show up here, make this statement.
Is there a better tool that empowers a woman to defend against an attacker that's 100 pounds bigger?
Nope.
That's why it's so important for women to learn how to defend themselves with the most effective self-defense tool ever invented. For women led by women, the Not Me program is designed to help with training programs, a gun, and getting a concealed carry permit. And guess what? It's free. To sign up, go to notmesd.org.
So La Mesa is poised to pass some gun regulations. Everyone's heard. We talked about it.
Yep.
And I wanted to give a whole lot of background and context here. So Heller versus D.C. was the 2008 Supreme Court decision that was the first big Second Amendment decision. Probably at the time the biggest Second Amendment decision the Supreme Court had put out. Not probably, for sure. It was huge. Since then, the Bruin decision has changed things a little bit, significantly, more than a little bit, for the better. So it's gotten even better when it comes to the Second Amendment. But what the whole case was based on was your inability to keep a gun in your home in Washington, D.C. So if you lived in Washington, D.C., your gun had to be locked up at all times or inoperable or in a safe at all times, and it was decided that is not constitutional. So a lot of these gun storage laws got blown off the books, but then they reappeared, especially here in California, on the municipal level, on the county level. And they're slightly different. Everybody says, well, wait a minute, how can they have a gun storage law when Heller versus D.C. already settled all that? You hear that a lot. Well, why can they do that? They're just going to take it to court, and that'll be that. We don't even have to fight that. They just take it to court, and they'll hold up the Heller versus D.C. decision, and the judge will rule in our favor, and we'll all walk away, and that's that. Well, it's not exactly. The way that they restructured this is that you still have to have your guns inoperable or locked up or in a safe or whatever, unless you're actually touching the gun. So that's why, to them, it is a significant difference between what was going on in Washington, D.C. and what these new laws are. I don't agree. A lot of people on the Second Amendment community don't agree that is a significant enough difference. So we still don't think it's constitutional. But in the meantime, the county of San Diego has passed this. The city of San Diego has passed this. Del Mar has passed this. Solana Beach, some of the usual anti-Second Amendment suspects have passed this, so that you have to keep your firearm locked up or inoperable inside your home unless you're actually physically touching it. Now, the regulation actually says, in your control, but they don't actually really define, like, well, what does that mean, in your control? So the most literal definition is, of course, if you're physically touching it. Hasn't been a lawsuit, hasn't been litigated yet. There's so many other things to litigate that it's certainly on the list of things that the Second Amendment groups want to get rid of. But right now, there are just other priorities. If money and time were endless, then we'd be working on this in the courtrooms right now. But instead, we're fighting it from spreading, to other municipalities. So what happened was La Mesa tried to pass this identical thing last year. It was identical to what San Diego and Del Mar and Solana Beach and some of the other municipalities in California had passed. And it was shot down. Laura Lothian led the charge. We helped get her elected. We're very, very happy. Bill Baber voted against it. Bill was somebody we also endorsed. And then the swing vote was the mayor, Dr. A. He basically said that, hey, this whole issue isn't what La Mesa is about. We're supposed to be improving the community. This is clearly a political attempt to spread politics that should be national or statewide, and they're trying to pollute La Mesa with this.
Good for him for stepping out of it and not getting caught up in the, he kind of stepped out and saw it for what it was.
I agree. I think that's, I don't really care why people behave. I just care that they behave. I thought it was great too that he's not a gun expert. He doesn't seem to have a real strong opinion either way on guns, but
Didn't take the bait and get sucked in.
Exactly. I would guess that he's probably, he's probably not a Second Amendment advocate. I would guess. I don't really know, but anyway, I'm glad he did that too. I'm glad you brought that up and said that because I agree with you wholeheartedly, 100%. So things have changed since last year. Bill Baber, unfortunately, is no longer on the city council and was replaced by somebody who's shown to be not a fan of the Second Amendment. So they brought it back. And this guy, his name's Councilman Shu. Jack Shu. He brought it back and basically said, just let everybody else, hey, this is going to be just like San Diego. It's going to be just like Solana Beach. It's going to be just like, Del Mar. So we all showed up. He said, hey, we got to show up, especially if you live on the Mesa, you need to show up and talk. So I think we had last Tuesday, somewhere around 70 folks on our side, and there were maybe half a dozen that supported this, and it was a really, really good showing, with very, very few exceptions. The statements made by the folks who opposed it were well thought out. Were extremely level-headed. Alisha, you said you watched it, right?
I did. I watched. I was not able to make it myself, but I did watch the live stream. And a question that I had, you actually kind of already answered. But what my observations as someone looking at it from the outside that wasn't able to be there in person, the amount of support and applause that was audible for those who opposed the measure was fantastic. And when a speaker, there were just, as you said, there were a few that got up in support of it. I think I could tell one person was clapping. I was curious, what was the split on support for versus against? Because it sounded like it was a lone person clapping.
Yeah, it was widely in favor of us. We definitely outnumbered them. Like I said, it was probably a good 70 folks that showed up to try to defeat this measure, and I think there were maybe 6, maybe 8 that opposed or that supported it.
With their opposition, were any of their arguments, at least intelligible?
So it's a good question. So
they were emotional.
It was all very emotional. Yeah,
it was a lot
of emotion.
Yep.
But that's where I'm going with this too. Is that there were a lot of people that said, hey, we need to do this to support, suicide, to make sure that people can't commit suicide. There were a lot of people who said, this will help, with criminal activity and that sort of thing. And there was a lot of back and forth on, we need this because, there were actually some personal stories of people who knew a loved one or had a friend or whatever who committed suicide. And then there were people saying, look, you can't defend yourself if the firearm is in a safe. You cannot, get the lock off quick enough if somebody's standing in your house, that sort of thing. And one of the points I made was, a lot of the folks who talk about gun storage laws, securing a firearm as being suicide prevention, say, hey, look, it delays them just enough, because a lot of people that survive suicide say that it's, a split moment decision, and a lot could delay them just enough to rethink suicide. Well, those same people are saying, look, it's not going to prevent you from defending yourself because they have these biometric safes and locks that are so easy to get into that it'll never, you can get into it in just half a second. And I pointed out the fact that both those things can't be true. It can't be true that a lock or a safe or whatever delays you long enough to prevent suicide. But
yet you can get in real quick.
But doesn't delay you long enough to be able to defend yourself.
Anybody comment against that?
No.
Well, there's no back and forth.
Oh.
By the way, everybody listening, when you go to these city council meetings, don't ask them questions. They can't answer the questions.
Oh.
When you're in the doing the public statements, and you ask them a question and they sit there and look at you blankly, it's because they can't. They are not allowed to answer the questions. So it makes you look, well, it's a little. It usually goes better if you look like you know what you're doing. So, so that was kind of the whole push, though. Was hey, we need this to prevent suicide, and then the other side was hey, we need this. We need to strike this down so that we can defend ourselves.
Right.
And if you look at the the county report, 70% of gun deaths, deaths where a gun's involved, 70% are suicide, 30% are homicide. So it was kind of split down the middle as far as their side was trying to prevent suicide. Our side was trying to prevent homicide.
Yet they presented this bill as a measure to protect children. And then they were turning it into suicide prevention.
So, and then there was a couple people mentioned kids. There was even a trained psychiatrist or some kind of counselor or therapist who said, "Oh, we got to protect the children," or whatever.
Right.
So I actually read the penal code. That was the first part of my statement. Was I read the penal code that in the state of California, you cannot store a firearm in such a way that a child or a prohibited person has access to it. So. Making a law that makes so you have to on the municipal level, so you have to store your firearm so that a child can't have access to it. You know what I mean? It's already law.
You need to write it down again.
Right. There was nothing about this gun storage law that would do anything to further protect children. It was completely duplicative, and I brought that up as well. A number of people did, but I actually read the California Penal Code so that it was one
clear.
of the so it was clear. One of the anti-gunners said, "Oh well, gee, sure, it's on the state level, but it's ambiguous and it's vague." Whatever. No, it's not. It's crystal friggin' clear, and there was nothing they were going to do. So we again, one of our members, a guy named Jeff, actually brought in a safe and a lock.
That was fantastic.
And demonstrated like, hey, look, this is how long it takes. This is what you actually have to do. I thought that was fantastic. There were a number of people who used their expertise and said, but the best thing was that by and large, the vast majority were reasonable, put on a great face. I think that people on the council and people in the audience that aren't used to dealing with the Second Amendment community were probably very impressed. In fact, I got some compliments about that. But it was pretty interesting what ended up happening. I want to talk about in the next segment exactly what happened because nobody's getting it right. The Union Tribune wrote a story. They didn't get it right. And another couple other sources didn't get it right.
Were they there?
My jaw was on the floor.
There was it wasn't there. One guy was listening. One of the authors was not there, but he was watching it live and actually contacted me after. He's a known anti-gun guy. He's blasted. He's so biased. It's not even. I mean, he doesn't even hide it, But he didn't get it right, even though he should have, because I explained it to him. We'll talk about what they didn't get right next.
Hey, if you've liked this show so far, you need to join San Diego County Gun Owners. $10, come on. Then you need to go to Gun Prom. You got to buy Alisha dinner. Hey, FM 96.1 AM 1170.
The answer.
Hey, a lot of companies wasted an enormous amount of money on marketing. The design is excellent, the photos are beautiful, and the website looks great. But it's just not getting customers. Why? Because you don't have the words that make people buy. But now you can fix that with Sage Tree. Sage Tree can help you find the words that make it easy for your customers to understand what you do and how to buy from you. Stop wasting money today and schedule a call. Getting started is super easy. Just visit sagetree.com and click on the schedule an appointment button at sagetree.com and hit that schedule a call button.
All right, so we're talking about La Mesa and what happened last Tuesday night. It was going on about the way the arguments and testimony fell, and so then what happened? So then they said, all right, great. Everybody has done their public comment. So let's turn it over to Jack Shu. Jack, what do you have to say? Because Jack Shu, the council member, is the one that actually proposed it. And he started off, it was weird. He said, like, hey, look, he said, nothing that anybody here has said has convinced me that this is a bad regulation. He said, and by the way, there's actually no requirement to have your gun locked up as long as you're home. It's only if you're not at home.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. But then he went on to say, And I got to tell you guys, we all heard some moving statements about how we have to pass this because of suicide prevention. Okay, well, the way he changed the reg, that you only have to have it locked up when you're not at home, it's no longer suicide prevention. Because in 100% of the cases,
the people are home.
He's home. The guy who committed suicide is at home. There was no requirement for the gun to be locked up. So it immediately
Did anybody bring that up?
Well, so Laura Lothian was next to comment, and she goes, wait. Oh, and then, but before I even go there, then he said, all right, so let's go ahead and vote on this thing and let's get it passed. And the mayor's like, well, no. The rest of the city council gets to comment, number one. And number two, we're not voting to pass this regulation. We're voting to draft it. We don't even have the wording yet. He's like, well, it's just like it's the same thing as last year. So he totally contradicted himself. He said on one breath, like, oh, no, we're if you're not home, that's when it needs to be locked up. And then he said, oh, no, it's the exact same thing as last year. It's completely not. It was seriously, it was, sometimes when you're on a board, some of these city council members kind of get lost in the process. And it's like, well, where are we now? Do we need a second or do we vote or where are we? Right. That's fine. That's excusable. That's why you have a parliamentarian,
But the content changes.
But he didn't know. Yeah, he was completely lost. He didn't know what he was proposing. He didn't know,
He just wanted to pass it.
He didn't even know what he would pass.
Do you think he really didn't know, or do you think he was backpedaling when he didn't have the support? Because I got the feeling like he heard the overwhelming lack of support, and then it kind of was like, well, this is what I really meant by it.
Yeah, well, you're probably right. When you have, 60, 70, whatever people standing there telling you how wrong you are, and he kind of figured that out. So then Laura Lothian said, wait.
She was fantastic.
She is fantastic. She's 100% fantastic. I'm so glad that we got her elected. She is just absolutely the best.
So what'd she say?
She said there's nothing in here that says, that it's only when you're not home. There's nothing in here that in this description that that says you don't have to be home. That's the only time it's locked up. And then she went on to point out some of the other weaknesses, in the law. Like, for example, in the regulation, the proposed regulation, the one example she gave that was really, really great was, let's say you do use a firearm in self-defense. And then, the investigation shows that it wasn't stored properly. Well, now you've gone from victim to criminal. Well, wait a minute. This person didn't have it stored properly. Now we're going to press charges on him. I thought that was an excellent point. She did an excellent job. Then Shu's the co-author, the co-sponsor of the regulation. I don't remember her name. She's brand new on the city council.
Give me a minute.
But she was like, well, wait. She said, look, I want to make sure that this thing is only when you're not home. Whatever we got to do. We got to make an amendment, whatever we got to do. So then Shu started talking about how, all right, well, let's pass this thing, and
we'll change it later.
Let's do a resolution. And the city attorney was like, there's no resolution. Like, you just all you're doing is directing staff to actually draft this thing. You're not passing a regulation. You're not passing a resolution.
What a moron.
It was really scary. I mean, this is complicated public safety stuff, and he seemed to have no idea what he was talking about. I really, truly, I really try to refrain. I think a lot of people who have talked to me, who listen to the radio, I'm pretty good about respecting people I disagree with, maybe, except my mic drops, but as far as going, I'm not saying that Shu was an idiot because I disagree with him. I'm saying that his behavior on the city, it was really scary. Like, he didn't seem to know what he was doing at all.
People say, well, how could these things be happening? How can the government allow these things to happen? Well, that's how it happens. People get in there that don't know the proper way to do things, and no one calls them out on it.
Truly.
Patricia Dillard, by the way.
Patricia Dillard. So she was the one that said, I want to make sure, whatever we got to do, I want to make sure that people aren't, it's only when people aren't home. So what they went ahead and voted. So now that throws everything off, right? Everybody's testimony was all about, you being home, right? I mean, the people that supported it, the people that opposed it, everybody was,
So everything was for naught.
Everything was for naught. And then, so it passed. They're going to draft this thing, and then they're going to vote on it. So it hasn't actually passed yet. They just agreed to get staff to author it, and that's where we're at. But, it's still, even though – so I think we took a lot of teeth out of it, like Alisha said, by showing up, putting pressure. We
Yeah, but
took a
didn't
lot
you
of
say
teeth out
this is already passed in other cities in the county?
Well, not this, but the one where you have to have it locked up all the time.
Yeah, that's the one I'm talking
passed, yeah. But this is the only one I know of where you have to have it locked up when no one's home.
Right.
Well,
But
that's the verbal. That's not in writing.
That's
we'll
not in
see
writing
what they
yet.
come up with when it's actually in writing.
And are you going to get to go? Are they?
Oh yeah, we'll let everybody know you got to show up. But the other thing we got to show up for is and I thank you to everybody who showed up and made a difference. I know, we have so many members and, people have things going on in their life. They can't show up. I totally understand. But those of you who showed up, who took 2-3 hours, who made the statement, thank you so much. You guys made a difference. Is it perfect? No, it's not perfect. Are we going to continue to fight against it? Absolutely.
Did they ask where you lived?
No, they didn't. They didn't ask where you live. By the way, doesn't matter.
I know. You don't have to tell them.
You don't have to tell them. If you're at a city council meeting, they say, okay, well, where do you live? You say, well, I'm respectfully going to decline. I respectfully decline to tell you. Oh, no, you have to tell us where you live. No, I don't.
No, where you live.
Brown Act says you don't have to tell them.
Be at your house Thursday.
So, but this Tuesday, we've talked in the last couple shows about the county board and their proposal, their report. The staff, this is the listening sessions, right? All the statistics that they pulled up, the 70%, the 30%. By the way, I've talked about how this report is backfiring on the anti-gunners. One of the things I pointed out was in that report, they showed that over 92% of gun owners in San Diego, over 92% keep their guns locked up at all times. Now, what problem are we trying to solve?
Did you bring that up?
Oh, I did. I absolutely brought that up.
And what did they say?
Well, they can't say anything. They
That's
just
right.
got to sit there and listen.
That was a question.
But the Tuesday, staff is going to present the results of this. Could it lead to something? Yeah, it could lead to something. It could lead to, one of the recommendations that they make. It could lead to some kind of anti-gun, malarkey that they're trying to pass. So San Diego County Gun Owners is going to be there and make a statement. Everyone who possibly can, 9 a.m. on Tuesday at the county building, the county admin building, be there and let them know that you don't want any more gun laws. You don't want any more gun regulations. This is
You have plenty.
Have plenty. This is truly a mental health issue as proven by their research, or a criminal issue as proven by their research. So stop the criminals, help the people who are going through a mental health crisis. Leave gun owners alone. Leave us alone. We're pillars of society.
Right.
So be there if you could, 9 a.m. Tuesday. I believe you can also Zoom in. Go to the county website and double check on that. But San Diego County Gun Owners are going to be there. We're going to give a statement, and wanted to let everybody know to please show up. La Mesa, we made a difference. Inarguably made a difference, like Alisha pointed out. So help us make a difference on the county level.
Are you expecting to make comments Tuesday morning at 9 o'clock?
Yeah, Tuesday, they'll say, agenda item, whatever, we're going to talk about this report, and then they'll take comments from the public, and that's when you get your 2, maybe 3 minutes to say whatever you want about that agenda item.
Okay.
And that's when you tell them, hey, no more gun regulations, no more additional gun regulations. This is ridiculous. So that's what. So what do you think, Dave?
Oh, I wish I could have been there.
You're pickled Tink.
Well, if we don't do this, just like, thank God the board at least was smart enough to realize that Shu was lost. I mean, really.
He was on the other foot.
It was on the other foot.
Well, so there's a lot of things that the San Diego County Gun Owners does, right? And it's not all about lawsuits, and it's not always all about our foundation. What we do is we try to get the right people elected. We find the resources to get the right people elected.
You messed up La Mesa.
No, we got Laura Lothian elected in La Mesa. And of course, elections have consequences. But there's so much more that we do when we show up and do this level of activism. People want to know, like, what can I do to help? We give them ways to help. Show up here, make this statement. Help people.
And for all you people out there that keep texting me and saying, how come you're not doing this and how come you're not doing that? Get off your butt and come to some of these things and speak up, because we can't change it without you folks chipping in. We can't do it all by ourselves.
That's right. Thanks for watching this clip from Gun Owners Radio. If you're watching mainstream media, you're not getting the truth about guns. Gun Owners Radio is the easiest way to stay on top of the Second Amendment fight, the fight for your self-defense rights. You can watch our live stream on YouTube every Sunday from 4 to 6 p.m. California time, or if you're in San Diego, AM 1170, FM 96.1, The Answer. We're also available on your favorite podcast platform. Just search Gun Owners Radio and you'll find our show. Like and subscribe to help defend and restore the Second Amendment, not just in California, but across the country.